Okay, so Perek Zion. So the first couple of paragraphs, he's going to summarize everything that we've been discussing. So let's just start. No introduction necessary. Okay. And now it's clear. The above mentioned topic, the Perek in the 5th chapter, Shehaodam Nikra HaNefesh, that a person, the human being, is called the Nefesh. It is called the soul. The Nishmas HaChaim, and the living soul, shall rebei rivova noilomes, of the thousands and tens of thousands of worlds. Loi nefesh kenefesh anosun v'dovuk mamash b'soich gufa odom. It's not like a soul that's given v'dovuk, that's attached mamash to the body of an odom. The zelo yitoch, and that's not possible, right? So in what way is a human being the nefesh, the living soul? Amnam, it's like this. Hainu, just like all of the movements and the directions and the guidance of evrei haguf, of the limbs of the body, it is only through the living soul that's in it, in the physical body, right? The living soul is directing all of the motions and the movements of the body, according to the movements of its chiyusoy, its vitality, and tiyosa in its direction. Kain, so too ha'inyan, in the same way, should call nitiyos hakoichos va'alomis v'sidrei merkava, that all of the direction of the hakoichos, of the powers va'alomis in the world, v'sidrei merkava, and the elements of the merkava, of the chariot, tikunam, they're fixing, ubinyonim, and they're building, v'harisusam, and also their destruction, chas v'sholom, who rak kefi inyan hisoyrus mimase ha'odum mata. It's all in accordance with the energy from the action of the person down below. Umitam shu kolul, and this from the reason that we mentioned above, shu kolul, that he includes umeshuchlan, he's composed b'mispar prote koichoisov v'sidreihem. He's composed from all of the elements of the powers of the world. Right, al pi sidre hishtalshelus, according to the arrangement of the chain of the arrangement, v'hiskashrus hakoichos, and the interconnectedness of the powers, v'oilomes ha'olyonim, and the worlds up above, v'atachtoinim, and the below ones, kulam, all of them. Right. So this again, he's just summarizing what he said before, that a person is nefesh, and such. How is a person the living soul? Because he contains within him all of the elements of all of the different worlds, right? And therefore, just like the body is directed by the soul, so too all of the worlds are directed by the human being, by the actions of the human being. And this is also from the root of his lofty soul, shehi hagavoya, because it is the uppermost, v'apnimis, and the innermost, from the worlds that were created, all of them, right? So the soul of the human being reaches up to the highermost aspect of creation, and so like we said in chapter Hey, in the 5th parak, that whatever is highermost is also innermost, and that's what controls everything that's outside of it. It's the engine that's within it, right? Kanal parak Hey, like we mentioned in parak Hey. L'chein, therefore, who koilul as kulam. Therefore, the human being is koilul as kulam. He comprises all of them, right? So that is the human being. The human being is the microcosm, as we said, of the entire creation. V'hatam, and the reason shenisbor perakei, that was explained in the 5th chapter. Machmas shoyrish nishmos, is because of the root of his soul. She gevoya, because it is uppermost, upnimis, and innermost, mehoilomis, of the worlds. Over, and the reason was further explained in the previous chapter, because he is comprised, he has the elements of all of the worlds. Hakol echod, these are all one thing, meaning these two aspects, right? That that we're saying that he is the uppermost of the worlds, and he also contains all of the elements of the worlds. These are all one thing, because whatever's internal, it is, everything else kind of stems out from it. So therefore, the human being is higher than all of the worlds, and he is also comprised of all of the worlds. He has the elements of all of the worlds, and because of that, he is the Nishmas Chaim. He is the living soul of the entire creation. Okay, good. So that's the summary of what we said. Now he's going to elaborate further. Now we're moving on to the next page. And therefore, Loi levadoi nitna mishpata bechira. It is only to him given a complete freedom of choice. Bechira, freedom of choice, right? It is only to him given this complete freedom of choice. Lahatois atzmoi, to direct himself, to lean himself, ve'esoi lomas, and the worlds with him, le'ezet tzad asher yachpo. It's to whatever side that he so chooses. So the true freedom of choice, what does the true freedom of choice mean? True freedom of choice means not just I can do whatever I want to do. The true freedom of choice says that I am free to choose my actions and all of the consequences of my actions. Right? If somebody puts me in a little whatever it is, jungle gym, where everything is soft, and say, here, jump all you want, that's not freedom of choice, because I can't hurt myself. That's not freedom of choice. That's just, меня поставили в такой bouncy place, and he says, hey, do whatever you want. Knock yourself out. Go wild. Right? Mm. Good, but that's not freedom of choice. It's true, I could do whatever I want, but it's whatever I want within this confinement. True freedom of choice means anything goes. You're completely limitless. You could do whatever you want, and all the consequences of your actions are completely up to your decision. Everything is in your hands, right? That's real freedom of choice. So we're saying the entire creation, everything that was created, is all within your freedom of choice, all within the humankind's freedom of choice.
I can't fly.
What?
I can't fly from the. How is this confinement different from a jungle?
Right. Okay. Good point. So of course you can't. You're right. It's in a way it's also limited. But I'm just saying. All he's saying that within the entire creation, anything that's within this creation is completely within my abilities. If I choose to to blow up the entire world, put a nuclear bomb, explode the whole thing, it is completely in my freedom of choice. My freedom of choice is absolute. It's limitless, right? So therefore, when I act in a good way, I'm building worlds. I'm building, there's all the way up to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There is ramifications of my freedom of choice, and same in my negative way, all the way up. Whatever destructions I make, everything is within my control, right? So he and his worlds are completely controlled by his choices. But here's another interesting idea, which is now, if you think about it to the next step, 1 second, what if I already messed up, right? I already made the wrong choices. So this is now, you understand what tshuva really means. If he already caused the sibev and it came out, that through his sins, harisas ha'olama is the destruction of the worlds, v'sidrei merkava, and the arrangement of this chariot of the merkava, right? Meaning he already destroyed the worlds. He made the wrong choices. He already sent his nukes out there. That's it. It's gone. It's done. Right? It's done. No, still. Right? V'churbonim v'yiridosam, and their destruction and their degradation. Right? Yesh koyach. Still, there is power. V'sipek b'yodei l'saking. Hashem create. That's the purpose of tshuva. That's the power of tshuva. That v'sipek b'yodei l'saking. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu allowed him to fix as asher ives, whatever he made crooked, v'livnois haneharosis, and to rebuild the destruction. Mitzat kolulu meshutav mikulam, from the very same aspect, because he includes all of these worlds. So therefore, if he picks up himself and he rebuilds himself, he is also rebuilding all of those things that he destroyed. Right, but that's a major. I mean, there was a generation that came. I forget to which Novi. They came to a Novi and they said, it can't be tshuva. Can't be. I'm saying to us, it's like, what's so hard? What's the big deal about tshuva? Like, okay, so you messed up. He said, I'm sorry. Okay, you moved on, right? Tshuva, okay, what's the big deal? But they know, because they really understood what it means to do an avera. What are the consequences of your actions? What really happens when a person sins? And so, how could it possibly such a thing that once it's done, it's done? You destroyed. How are you going to rebuild everything? No. And so the Nefesh HaChaim is saying no, and he's going to elaborate on this later. Right now, he just says it as is. But basically, since the person is the same person that destroyed, he still is kol. He still contains within him all of those all of those aspects of creation. So therefore, if he does tshuva and rebuilds himself, he is rebuilding, he is regenerating, he's restarting all of those worlds that he destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
Is it so when we have instances of our Nevi'im reprimanding people, like when Yonah went into Nineveh,
Right.
and people, in that instance, they did tshuva, but in other instances, they didn't do tshuva because they realized back then how much damage they've done by their sins, right? Same.
I'm not saying that's why they didn't do tshuva. They didn't do tshuva because they didn't do tshuva. It could be that there is a, I think it was Yecheskel Anovic, they came to him and he says, it can't be this tshuva, that doesn't make sense, doesn't work. Right? And he says, no, it's not true, it works. That's the magic, again, that's the magic of tshuva. It works. It works. Okay, but we have to understand what a real tshuva accomplishes. It's not just like, it's not the question. The question of tshuva is not just, listen, God says, do A. Instead of A, he does B, right? Later he says, I did a terrible thing. I really should have done A. God, I feel guilty that I didn't listen to your will, right? So God says, okay, I recognize your guilt and I appreciate your guilt. Okay, I forgive you. Okay, that's what we think of tshuva, that, okay, I got forgiveness from God, meaning that the guilt was, I was pardoned by the guilt. But did I really undo what I did? Did I really fix my actions? Right? That doesn't make any sense. But what he's saying is no. He says there is an actual rectification of all of those, all of the spiritual damage that was caused through my actions. All of that can be rebuilt, right? Again, is it limitless? I don't know if it's limitless, because we see that by Adam Arishon it didn't work. Did Adam Arishon do tshuva after he ate from Eitz Hadas? I'm sure he did tshuva. Mm-hmm. Maybe he didn't do complete tshuva. I don't know, but obviously he wasn't able to fix everything, right? So
Isn't
maybe
that we're all in the process
right.
of
So okay,
his
so you
tshuva?
could say maybe that's part of the plan, that sometimes you need, But
It's
same
a
thing with
long-term
Moshe
tshuva.
Rabbeinu. See, with Moshe Rabbeinu, you see. I don't know if that they didn't I don't know if they didn't. I think that it could be certain sins that are so deep within a person. Probably it's not that they, even if they did, so to speak, verbal tshuva, it's not a real tshuva. They did not really correct their past mistakes. There are certain sins that are so part of who we are that I don't know if it's just that a real, you need like it's tshuva over there. It means like almost like a rebirth of that human being. It's like really getting to that root of that soul and fixing it. It's probably Adam Arishan's sin is not just, of course he did tshuva. They said, I'm sorry and I felt bad, and I'm sure he was forgiven in terms of the shame and guilt aspect of it. But in terms of really going back and correcting what he did, that probably he did not accomplish. And same thing with Moshe Rabbeinu when they hit the rock, right? There are certain actions that are just so part of who we are that it's not enough to just the regular tshuva. Even the deepest tshuva, it's a whole different ballgame. Anyway, so he'll get back to this later on, the whole idea of tshuva, how that works. But now he continues with his main theme, right? V'zeh Amar David, and this is what David the Melech alav shalom said. Hashem tzilcha al yad yeminecha. Hashem is your shadow on your right hand, right? So this is the famous words of David HaMelech from the Tehillim that one of those most often recited Tehillims, right? Shira Malos. Hashem tzilcha al yad yeminecha. Hashem is your shadow on your right hand. So what does it mean? Hashem is your shadow, right? Hashem is your shadow. What does that mean? It's almost like an insult, right? So Hainu, but that's what it means. Just like the movement of the tzel, of the shade, of anything, is directly corresponding to whatever the movement of that thing, and which way it goes. Kain b'dimyon zeh, so too in this parallel, kaviyachol, as if to say, Hu yizborach shmoi, he, of blessed be his name, mischaber lintois ha'olomis, he connects to direct the worlds kifitnuas nitias masi odum mata, according to the direction and the movement of the human being below. So we move this way, Hashem within the worlds move this way. We move this way, Hashem and the worlds move this way. Hashem tzilcha, Hashem is your shadow. Whatever, everything, meaning part, and that's part of this idea of bechira. The bechira is to such a degree that even Hashem, so to speak, is within our bechira. He's our shadow. Not that we are his shadow, it's he is our shadow. That we move everything, the bechira is so complete that all of our movements, he corresponds to us kafi our movements, not the other way around. We don't correspond to him kafi his movements, he corresponds to us kafi our movements. Okay? V'chein mefurish b'medrash, and similar idea is explicit in the medrash. Omar lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu l'Moshe. This is when Moshe, right? Moshe asked Hashem, Hashem, what's your name, right? So Hashem said to Moshe, Lech emor lohem Yisrael, go tell the Jewish people, Kishmi ekayeh asher ekayeh. My name is, I will be such that I will be. Right? Ekayeh asher ekayeh. I will be such that I will be. So the Medrash says, Mahu ekayeh asher ekayeh. What does it mean, I will be such that I will be? Kishem she'at hoy ve'emi. It's the way that you are going to be with me, Hashem says, Kach ani hoy ve'emcha. So too I will be with you. The way you will be with me, so too I will be with you. Right? So this I will be, that way I will be is interpreted in different ways. Right? The Gemara Brachas interprets it that I will be with you in this goes, and I will also be with you in the next goes. But this Medrash interprets it, I will be with you the way you will be with me. Right? That's the way. Even though it says I will be the way I will be, but the Medrash interprets it to this double lotion of I will be, meaning I will be the way I will be because of the way you will be. That's really how the Medrash understands, right? And he elaborates. The Medrash brings a proof. V'chein Omar David and Sim. This is the idea that David HaMelech said. Hashem tzilcha al yad minecha. Hashem is your shadow on your right hand. Ma'u Hashem tzilcha. What does it mean? Hashem is your shadow. Ketzilcha, like a shadow. Ma tzilcha, just like a shadow. Imata mesachik loy. If you laugh, make it laugh, so to speak. Mesachik loy. If you make it happy. Hu mesachik lecha. It makes you happy. So over here, the shadow, I think, is more interpreted like a mirror, but it's a similar idea. That if you will make it happy, if you make Hashem happy, Hashem will make you happy. If you are crying, hu boiche kenegdecha. He is crying parallel to you. If you are showing him angry faces, or happy faces, so too he gives back to you. So too HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem tzilcha, Hashem is your shadow. The way you are with him, that's the way he is with you. Ad kan, that's the end of the Medrash. Right? So again, so it's a very important idea. Again, that really changes the perspective in terms of what people think like Hashem's punishments are. There's no such thing as almost, at least as far as I see, there's no such thing as punishments. Everything is just whatever you dish out, so to speak, you get back. Whatever you put in, that's what you get back. The way you are, that's the way Hashem is with you, right? So it's a whole different ballgame. And now he's going to prove the same thing from the Zohar. Ubezohar tetzave, and the same thing in Zohar and Parshat Tetzave. Tochazi, come and see. Al motato, the world that's below, the lower world. Kayomo lekabla. Its whole nature is to accept. It's passive. It's receiving. Well, almo ilah, but the world that's above, lo yohiv le ela kegavna deihu kaima. It's placed in the way that it is standing. It's hard to read. Ihu kaima benihiru de anpin metato, and it's standing the way it is illuminated from the world below, right? So the way that it's illuminated from below, so too it illuminates back from above. Okay, so the lower world is passive; it receives whatever it receives. Once it receives from our actions, meaningly, so too the upper world corresponds to whatever the lower world receives. V'iu kaima be'atzivus. So if the lower world is atzivu, is in sadness, yohiv in lehai dina bekible. In response to that, there's more din, there's more judgment. Kagavna do. So that's why it says, Ivdu es Hashem b'simcha, serve Hashem with happiness. Chedva debarnash, happiness of a person, moshich legabe chevdva achora ilo. It pulls from itself, for itself, the happiness, a different happiness from above, right? If you serve Hashem with happiness, you pull down happiness from above. Hochinami hay almata so too will be the lower worlds. Kagavna diyu yisayir, the way that he energizes it, that's the way the faucet kind of turns on from above. Okay, so that's the Zohar. The Zohar says that whatever energy, so to speak, you're putting into the lower world, you get parallel mirror image energy from the world above. Okay, so that's the Zohar. And now he says a beautiful thing. He says, "V'hu inyan hakruvim." And this is really the idea of the kruvim. What are the kruvim? Mm-hmm. The kruvim are the cherubim, right? Where are the cherubim? On the ark, right? What do you mean v'hu kruvim? What are these? Are the cherubim? Shehoyu meurin, because they had the picture kimar ish uleviyos pneihem ish el achiv. It says they're like a man, and their faces are a man to his brother. Right, so they faced the two kruvim. They changed their positions, even though they were made of metal, right? But they could change the way they looked at one another. Either they faced each other or they faced away, right? But then he says, but kruvish shloimeh haksiv. But however, by the kruvim in King Solomon's temple, it says ubneihem labayas, that their faces were to the house, so they weren't to each other. So this is what he's going to explain now. But basically what he's introducing to us an idea, which is going to elaborate in the next chapter. And the idea is that this whole idea of Hashem Tzilcha, Hashem is your shadow, right? We see that whole idea is symbolized in the Kruvim, because they are facing one another. And now, you would have thought, you realize it doesn't mean, but you could have thought that the initial kruv is the Hashem, so to speak, the Hashem's kruv, right? And the corresponding kruv is the Klal Yisrael's kruv, right? The humankind kruv. But what we're saying is no, it's the other way around, which is obvious because like the Gemara says, that if Jews are not doing the will of Hashem, right, then the kruvim separate, right? So obviously, who controls the intimacy of the kruvim?
So they're not equal?
We are in control of the intimacy of the kruvim. So the symbol of the kruvim is this idea that Hashem corresponds to our actions.
So that makes them not equal, right? The kruvim, the one that represents Hashem is probably more important.
No, just the opposite. It comes out to the Hashem ours is more important. And he's gonna speak out in the later. He says, I'll prove it to you, because he's gonna say later. I'm jumping the gun a little bit, but he's gonna say like this: if the kruv that really, if you wanted, even if you wanted to depict this picture that Hashem corresponds, to the right, you could have just said one kruv, the Hashem's kruv could have been just passive, just standing in one position, right?
Right.
And Klal Yisrael's kruv could have been away or forward, away or forward.
This correlates
right?
very well to
it. Exactly. But since we see that both kruvim are kind of corresponding to one another, we see that it's exactly this idea of Hashem Tzilcha. Hashem is the shadow or the mirror, meaning if we come forward, he comes forward. If we distance ourselves, he distances himself. So it's about this mirror image, depending on what we are putting out. Okay, good. So let's start Perek Tes. So Hine Hine Rabbi Seinu Zal, our rabbis of blessed memory, Omru, Be'inyan Akruvim, they said in regards to the Kruvim of Basra, Ketzad Hein Oimdid. How were they standing? Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Loza. Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Loza. Chad Omer, one says, Pneim Ishalochiv, their face was as what were man to his brother, meaning facing one another. V'chad Omer, and the other one says, no, Pneihem Labayis. Their face, they were facing the house, meaning well, they were inside the Kodesh HaKadoshim, so
Okay.
Whatever that means. I'm not sure what that means. They were facing, I'm not sure what that means. Okay, now let's see. So the Gemara continues. Ulamando Omer, now, it's a little funny because Labayis actually over here, I think, means they were facing downward towards the Aron. Right? Where's the Chum? Right? The pasuk says. Right? Well, you're Kruvim. Right? And the Kruvim were pursing Knafaim. They would spread their wings Lamaila towards the top. And they would cover the kapiris, that's the cover, right? Mm-hmm. They would cover over the cover. Upneihem, now it says, in their faces, ish el ochiv, their faces were one to his brother, ela kapiris, to the cover, meaning the cover, yiyu pnei akruvim. So the pasuk itself is what's the word? Is ambiguous, right? On one hand, it says that they were facing one another, and the other hand says they were facing down. So, right? So each mandomer is going to seemingly tell you which one is the main and which one is the secondary. So the Gemara asks, it's according to the mandomer that says that their faces were one to another, but it's written their faces are to the house, meaning in words. So he answers, it's not a question. This is the time that when the Jews are fulfilling the will of the master. This is when the Jews are not fulfilling the will of the master. V'ayin Rashi, and look at Rashi over there. So I have the Rashi. I have the Rashi here. So I'm going to read the Rashi to you. It's a Rashi says like this: Pneim ish el achiv, and their faces were a man to his brother. B'shel Moshe, in Moshe, that's what it's written over here by Moshe Rabbeinu. B'shel Moshe ksivu pneihem, b'shel Moshe ksivu. I'm sorry, but that's what's written by Moshe Rabbeinu. Upneihem labayis, and faces towards the house. B'kruvim shel Shlomo ksiv b'divrei yomim. This is written by Kruvim of Shlomo in Divrei Yomim. The ksiv v'hem oimdim al ragleim. They are standing on their feet. Upneihem labayis, and their faces were to the house. Not like actually that it says here upneihem elakaparis. Okay, so the Gemara continues. This is when the Jews are fulfilling the will of the Creator. That's when they turn their faces to each other. Again, Rashi is very meduktik. Rashi says that's when they turn their faces to each other, meaning both of them are turning their faces to each other. Dugmas chibas zocher v'nekeva, is similar to love between the male and the female. Ha'oyhavim zelazeh, that love one another. Siman, it's a siman sha'Hakadosh Baruch Hu oyehav es Yisrael, that Hakadosh Baruch Hu also loves the Jewish people. Umitchila kach nasu, and this is how they were made initially. Ponim el ponim, they were facing each other. Kadesh tishra shchina v'Yisrael, so the shchina should rest among the Jewish people. V'Yisrael yasser ritzoyin shalmokum, and the Jews should also do the will of Hashem. But when they don't do the will of Hashem, they turn their faces to the house. This was miraculous. The mitzadedi atzdudi, they are, they're kind of like looking sideways. Yeah, k'tzas labayis, k'tzas zelazed. They're not like turning backwards, but slightly. They're still facing each other, but they're slightly looking in different directions. K'odem hamidaber el chaveiroi, as if it's the way like a person would still be talking to another person, but v'hoifech roish k'tzas l'tzad acher, but he's kind of looking the other way. But he's talking to you, but like not in the covered way. Okay, but over here you can't answer kan bisman shisrael loisin the kivan the ikar asiyas kruvim pneihem labayis lo hoyelahem lasais lesiman shein Yisrael loisin tzayin shalmokum. Now over here, this is he's going in the other mandomer, which we're going to see now. That's he's jumping ahead a little bit. That according to the other mandomer, it's a problem. You can't, right? All right, let's see a little more first, and I'll explain. Ulemando Omer. Now the Gemara continues. What about according to Mando Omer upneihem labayis? That he says that they were facing the house. Ah hoksiv upneim ish elochiv. So I messed up. I skipped the. I messed up. Okay, but anyway, so hoksiv upneim ish elochiv. It says that their faces were to one another. The mitzadati dudi. They are both. They're both to each other, and they're slightly sideways. It means to say that a little bit towards the house and a little bit towards one another. In Rashi, this is what Rashi explains what this means. It's if you're still talking to the person, but you're looking the other way, right? Because this man the Omer Rashi explains can't answer. This is the time when they're fulfilling their will. Why can't he answer that? Because the Shlomo's and Melech's Kruvim were initially facing. It says Pneim Labayis. They were facing the house, right? So you can't say that the initial state, the ideal state, was the non-ideal state, right?
Okay.
So why would you start off with the non-ideal state, according to this Mandomer? Good.
So how do we know when the initially they were facing the bias? Because the pasuk here was
the pasuk over here says this is Moshe Rabbeinu. By Moshe Rabbeinu, the pasuk says Ish Elochiv. They're facing one another.
Right.
The pasuk by Shlomo Melech Divrei Hayom says Upneihem Labayis, that their faces were towards the house. Right now, you still have to say that this is also true. It says Ish Elochiv. So that's why, according to the other, so the one Mandomer says really they were. That they changed faces. Sometimes they faced one another. Sometimes they faced this way. Both psukim are correct, just different times. That's one mandomer. The second mandomer says no, they're both correct, but not at different times. They're both looking somewhat at each other and somewhat towards the house. Okay, and he's going to explain what
initially they were built to look at each other. Or?
No, this was it seems, at least right now, it seems that according to this Mandomer, this was the permanent state. They were always slightly apart.
One eye this way.
Slightly apart. And he's going to elaborate what there's a deep underlying machlokas between these two opinions. Okay, fine. So let's see. Okay, so he explains. You can't use the same answer as above. That over here it's when the Jews are fulfilling their will. The given the ikra siyas kruvim pneim lavai, since the beginning by Shlomo Melech they made the kruvim towards the house. They wouldn't want from the very beginning to do us. The symbolic picture of the kruvim is going to be at the time when the Jews are not fulfilling God's will. That doesn't make any sense, right? So v'chein kosu Tosfos Shom, and this is what Tosfos over there also says. The mistama hamidam tchila, that we presume that the initial creation of Shlomo Melech's kruvim lefi mashu hoyu oisin ritzoyin shlomokum, according to the ideal state of them fulfilling God's will. But l'chayra tiksha. Now his question. Lama hamidam tchila kruvei Shlomo pneihem mitzudodim v'lo ish elochiv mamash. Why? Okay, so you tell me that's the ideal state. Why would that be? But still, why is that the ideal state? Why would you want to create this slight divergence? Right? Okay, so they're still kind of facing each other, but they're kind of not facing each other. So why are you doing that? Why not go with the first mandomer? The first mandomer seems to be very good. Right? They're always when the things are good, they're really facing each other. When the things are not good, they're not facing each other. The second Mandomer says that no, they were always slightly facing, slightly not facing. So what's the logic? What's the logic behind that? Okay, so I don't have any more copies for this. Okay, let's. Let me just. I forgot to mention one thing that I wanted to mention. I heard this word on this idea years ago, probably 20 years ago. I probably heard this word, and I still feel it. I still feel it. So right, there's a famous Gemara with Hillel and Shammai, right? That the convert came to Hillel and Shammai, says, "Teach me Torah on 1 foot." Right? Shammai sends him away, comes to Hillel. Hillel says, "Don't do to others what you want to be done to yourself. Whatever you don't like, don't do to others." Right? So there are a couple of questions on this. And he says, this is the entire Torah. Everything else is commentary. Go ahead, go and learn it. Right? This is the entire Torah. Everything else is commentary. So a couple of questions. Question number one is, how is this the entire Torah? Right? Okay, you could say that maybe, it's v'ahavta l'reich kamocha, right? Love your fellow man as yourself. So maybe it includes all of the ben adam l'chavera, right? But it does. How does it include, all of the other things like Shabbos, kashrus? Like, what's the connection to all? Okay, you're going to be a good person, true, but what has it got to do with prayer, with the tefillin, all of those other things? Okay. That's number one. And number two is, why did he say it in the negative? Why didn't he just say positive? Love your friend as yourself. Why did he say, don't do unto others what you don't want to be done to yourself? Like, why in the negative? Why not in the positive? Go do unto others what you would want to be done to yourself. Right? So the answer is this pasuk, Hashem tzilcha. Hashem is your shadow. Right? That's the answer. The answer is really, that answers the first question, at least. The first question is, how does it include all of the commandments between a man and God? The answer is really no, because if a person shows love to his fellow man, then Hashem shows love to to the people, right? If you are good to others, Hashem is good to them, because Hashem tzilcha, Hashem mimics your actions, right? And whatever you put out, right? If you carry, right? You are right, because, and if you want to take it even deeper, we are constantly, we're copying Hashem's actions. Hashem created the world. He wanted to give goodness to others, right? So we are copying his actions. The more we are putting that goodness into the world, we are creatively producing good into the world, bringing good and happiness into the world, the more Hashem comes closer to the world. So the whole idea of what's the whole idea of Avodas Hashem? To come close to Hashem. So you can come close to Hashem just as much by doing good things to others, because Hashem tzilcha, Hashem is your shadow. You doing good to others, Hashem does good to the people. So ultimately, you are rectifying the world. So really, what Hillel is telling him, this really includes everything, doing good to others. Now, why did he say it in the negative? So this is different. So the whole idea, how do you do good to others? Why don't you, let's say, meaning your hand did an avera, right? Yeah, your hand did an avera. You don't take your knife and you start stabbing your hand. Bad hand. You don't do that. Why don't you do that? Because it's not your hand that hurts when you're stabbing yourself. It's you who hurts when you're right?
It's also not your hand that did averas, it's the person.
Right, that's true. But the idea is that what he's trying to say is that the idea is that you and your hand are connected. You cannot hurt your hand independent of you, right? So that's the whole idea is, don't do anything unto others that you wouldn't want to be done to yourself. Is all of those others should be really like a part of you. Because if they are a part of you, then you wouldn't want to be, just like you can't do anything to yourself, to any other part of yourself negative, because they are part of you. So too, you don't do unto others because they are also part of you. So the idea of don't do unto others what you wouldn't want to be done to yourself is the understanding that everything is one. It's all one. So if you live with the notion that everything is all one, so again, you're bringing oneness of Hashem into the world, and it's also the same idea that Hashem tzilcha, Hashem is your shadow, Hashem corresponds to what you're doing.
So we could very well apply this to Adam Lamakim. Don't do to Hashem what you wouldn't want.
Right, if you want to, right, you could also say it that way, meaning that it doesn't mean others, includes also.
No, not just
also,
but
that's harder. That's probably harder because
Isn't that what he's saying here? If you face
right,
Hashem, he's
right,
facing
but
you. If you're facing elsewhere, he's facing elsewhere.
right, but you presume his Hashem is a little different because Hashem's whole facing towards us is for us, right? I mean, he's not doing it for himself,
Right, okay.
right? So it's hard for me to imagine. Don't to say to Hashem, don't do Hashem what you wouldn't want to be done to yourself. It's just
Because it's gonna
it's
mirror back.
but
you
you're
know,
right. Okay, but I guess you
you're
could say
causing pain.
you're
And,
causing pain. I mean, right? It could be. You could say it. You could say it this way also. All right. It's all right. Okay. It's but the idea is still is still true. I think, right? It's still based on this idea of Hashem Tzilcha. But Hashem is your shadow. That's whatever you are putting out. That's what Hashem is putting back. So, which means that everything that we do, it's again. You take it to I don't know how far you're allowed to take it, but basically, with our kids, the way we are to our kids, that Hashem, right? I mean, we are Hashem's kids, right? So the way we are with our kids, Hashem is in within our little kitchen, within everything that we do, we could be like literally changing the way the entire world is run because the kind of energy that we're putting into our kitchen, into our living rooms, into our kids, into our little whatever, everything is Hashem Tzilcha. Hashem is our shadow. So it's a powerful idea. I mean, again, I don't know. I guess each one of us has a stronger pull, so to speak, on Hashem, but right, but some less, some more. But the more we develop this relationship, the more we have that pull, and the more we even again in our very simple everyday life that we could, whatever energy we put out, that like changes the entire direction of the way Hashem is guiding the world. So I mean, we have incredible powers. Okay, I think it's a good note to stop.